All right, I think we're getting close here. Bully, you got your last mimosa? There's only supposed to be 6 each, right? That got everyone's attention. Nothing like ritual humiliation of a guest. Are we good to go with the video? Everybody got a mimosa who wants a mimosa? I think before we get started, I'll just raise a quick glass to Carole. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the celebration of life for Carole, Marsha, Hutson. My name is Colin Robinson. I'm Carole's son-in-law. I'm married to Kendall, proud father of Jack and Charlie, and I'm privileged to be your master of ceremonies today. We gathered today with heavy hearts, but also with a spirit of deep appreciation for a woman who was, by her own definition, when she was being interviewed a couple of years ago by her grandson and referred to herself as a true go-getter. I was fortunate to know Carole for more than 30 years. And when it comes to the lottery in life of getting in-laws, I won the jackpot. Ooh, it gets hard here. Carole and Mike were always supportive and deeply interested in our lives. And even when they couldn't possibly fathom why I did most of the things I chose to do, they supported me unequivocally. The idea of paddling into the wilderness somewhere in a canoe and dealing with bugs and sleeping outside wasn't high on Carole's list of desires, but she knew that I loved it, and that's what counted, and she supported me tremendously. And I've always liked to say that Carole became the self-proclaimed president of the Colin Robinson fan club. And she passed a bylaw at their first meeting that she wasn't taking on any new members. My brother-in-law here, Steve, was also fortunate to get the same ticket in that lottery, and he too has enjoyed the love and support that Carole radiated. As we gather today to reflect on Carole's life, I think there's going to be some surprises as folks learn about Carole's many accomplishments. One thing that stands out was her incredible ability to keep all the balls in the air. Whether she was navigating the halls of Queen's Park, negotiating teacher salaries, leading community associations, or raising a family. She did so with a sense of purpose and a sharp intellect. She believed in being true to yourself, a philosophy that brought her a sense of contentment and allowed her to face every challenge with persistence. Carole passed that tendency, or that tenacity, and strong intellectual curiosity about the world onto her daughters and her grandchildren, of whom she was enormously proud. There are 3 main areas in Carole's life that I will reflect on today: her dedication to the family, her diverse and impactful career, and her adventurous spirit of intellectual curiosity. Above all else, Carole was the heart of family. She first met Michael Hutson in May 1965 on a blind date. A friend knew Mike. They're all invited to a dinner that clearly went pretty well, as it led to a second silly date, where they, despite, if everyone knew Mike, the laws of gravity, they ended up on teeter-totters. Carole later recalled that Mike's willingness to play along made him, quote, go up a notch, end quote, in her eyes, because Carole had an innate sense of fun. And I don't actually think that Carole had much time for people who took themselves too seriously. In August 1967, Carole and Michael married, an event that Mike jokingly loved to call his Centennial Project to mark Canada's 100th birthday. Together, they built a life in Toronto centered on their 2 daughters, Kendall and Rochelle, and later their 3 grandchildren, Jack, Charlie, and Zoe, and their step-grandchildren, Jordan and Gemma. Carole viewed parenthood as a lifelong, challenging, but wonderful job, and she saw her role as a guide to encourage her children through all their ups and downs. She was particularly proud of her daughter's bravery and independence, often noting how they had traveled the world on their own to places like Europe, Mexico, China, Australia. But Carole's professional life was a testament to her versatility and her commitment to service. She began her career as a public school teacher in East York, where she quickly moved into leadership as a salary negotiator for the Women's Teachers Association. Her talent for organization and advocacy eventually led her to the Junior League of Toronto, where she served on the board and as a Valley Fair chairman. A lot of folks in the room today who enjoyed the Valley Fair. In her written reflections on her life, she often credited the Junior League for helping her develop the skills that would benefit her tremendously throughout her life. For example, her most heady professional time came in the late 1980s when she worked for the provincial Liberal government. Starting as a constituency assistant, she rose to become the executive assistant to the Minister of Culture and Communications. And despite describing herself as an outsider in the political world, she excelled, even earning praise from officials for the meticulous legal submissions that she constructed from scratch. And of course, we must mention her role at Sports Fantasy. When Mike was struggling with the pressures of this new retail business, Carole dropped everything and jumped in to help. Despite knowing very little about sports at the time, she adapted quickly. She would read the sports pages every morning so she could talk knowledgeably with customers. And Michael always credited her as the person who saved the store. Finally, we remember Carole for her sense of adventure and her ability to find joy in the unexpected. When I first met Carole, she was still in her 40s. Although, to be fair, she was knocking on the door at 50. Carole was captivated by rollerblading that a lot of young people were doing, so she decided to take it up herself, getting all the appropriate equipment and safety gear. And as I wrote this, I could only imagine the poor guy at the or lady at the sports store who probably had 17,000 questions sent to her about which is a proper helmet to wear. But Carole was quite wise as she would drive out of the valley, which had terrible roads, to find places in Toronto with smooth pavement so she could rollerblade to her heart's content. Not a lot of 50-year-olds decide to take up rollerblading. That same adventurous soul was evident when she rented a cube van and drove Rochelle from Toronto to Halifax to start university. Hard to imagine Carole being able to see over the dash of a cube van, but hey. They swung by Montreal to pick up Kendall on the way, and they took their time to explore Atlantic Canada and Maine. And Carole enjoyed absolutely every minute of her time with her daughters. Speaking of filling the void of children leaving home to go to university, after Kendall went to Montreal, Carole and Mike brought home a 4-month-old Old English sheepdog named Oakley. And when the puppy whined on his first night, Carole ended up sleeping in the bathtub next to him just to keep him calm so as not to bother Mike or Rochelle. Carole loved that dog. A lot of people in this room who know that dog. And she loved all the pets that the family enjoyed over the years. So whether she was traveling to Australia 5 times, cruising through Alaska, the Caribbean, or New Zealand, or documenting 22 years of family Christmas letters, Carole was always engaged, always curious, and always deeply interested in the people around her. Carole Marsha Hutson had to be one of the most thoughtful people I've ever known. And at this point, I'm going to invite some others to share their memories of Carole. And first, I'd like to invite Carole's daughter, Rochelle Hutson, to share some reflections on her mother.
Do I have to hold it?
Well, you can put it in here, but you're tall. Keep it close to your mouth.
Keep it close?
Very close to your mouth.
Okay. I'll just put it in there and see how that goes. Okay. Sorry, I gotta clean my glasses so I can see. Okay. This fuzzy thing is for you, is that right? Okay, good. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you, Colin. That was beautiful. Okay, I'm going to be close to the mouth, right? Yep, okay. Oh. I'm overwhelmed by the love in this room and the many family and friends who are joining us online for my mother. I know she would be too. Thank you for being here as we share what's in our hearts. And I try not to cry through the whole thing. Cobourg gave my parents a wonderful retirement. They met some of their closest friends here. Cobourg has also been my home base in Canada for the last 20 years. I can't think of a better place to come home to. Cobourg is where Zoe has learned what it means to be a Canadian. At 13 years old, she has spent over 2 years of her life here in Cobourg. Thank you to all the kindness and love that you have shown our family. Gemma, my stepdaughter, said it perfectly. Carole was endearing. She inspired affection because she gave it. She was deeply interested in our lives. She loved hearing our excitement and sharing in our joy. She kept voicemail messages for years and listened to them over and over again. Jack's first day of kindergarten, his first day on the bus. At one point, I think she had 22 messages saved on her voicemail service, so she would play them over and over again. She took such joy in seeing us fly. She was our #1 fan, always there to support us, always asking what she could do to help. She was a great responder to any dream or challenge. As teenagers, Kendall and I spent hours on the front veranda, sitting on the bench talking. Mom would wander out and sit with us, no matter the weather, never judging, just joining us in whatever state we were in. She knew that's how you connect with a teen, meet them where they're at. Mom and I spoke on the phone for hours every week. An hour-long call was a short one. It started when I moved to Halifax for university 32 years ago. And now with a 14 or 16-hour time difference, our time together was in her evenings, sometimes as late as 10 p.m. She never once said, "I can't talk right now," or "Can we talk in the morning?" She was always up for a chat. Mom, thank you for showing us such love. Thank you for showing us what patience and devotion to your family feels like. Mom gave us the confidence to ask questions, to be curious, and to seek answers to help us find our way. She showed us this throughout her life. I remember being 11 or 12 and watching her battle it out with Tridel, the big property developer, as the first female president of the York Mills Valley Association, making sure that the beauty of Hogs Hollow was protected in the face of such giants. She did not back down. She pulled together the right team of people. Asking for help isn't giving up. It's refusing to give up, said the horse to the boy. A favorite line of hers in the book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. The last 2 years has been hard for Mum. Her own health issues and my father's sudden passing, on top of many long, hard years getting my father safely through the pandemic. But she met all these hardships with great strength and bravery. When Zoe was 8, and her and I went through a lot to be able to see her grandparents after the pandemic, once Australia opened its borders, Bubba told Zoe she had grit. In Mum's last days, Zoe told Bubba she had left out the obvious part, that Bubba had grit too. In fact, more grit than anyone could imagine. I couldn't agree more. Mum was a voracious reader, as many of you know, always looking for recommendations for her next book. She would write them down on small pieces of paper by her favorite chair. I've treasured finding these pieces of paper, newspaper clippings, lists of books over the last few weeks, because they give me insight into her before she went into hospital. On one piece of paper were 2 books. Nobody Wants Your Shit by Messy Kondo. And The Art of Decluttering Before You Die. Kendall and I would have wished she was reading The Art of Cruising and Not Giving a Shit. But that wasn't her way. She always was wanting to make things easier for us. The suddenness of my mum's passing has been a great shock to all of us. I want to share with you a message from my mum, as it has given me comfort. Kendall and I just found this and opened it a few days after she passed. It was written 15 years ago, in April 2011, shortly after returning from my wedding in Australia and miraculously walking away from a crazy car accident on the 401 on her way to the airport. She wrote a letter to my dad, Kendall, and me, in the event that she might pass. She says, "Dear Michael, Kendall, and Rochelle, I want you to know that I loved you deeply. Move forward with your lives and let your light shine. You have given me great pleasure to walk with you through this lifetime. It has been a joy. Love expands with the more you welcome and embrace to your soul. Go forward with Colin and Steve, dear Jack and Charlie, Jordan and Gemma, and Zoe. All my love, Carole, Mum." That's her message for all of us. Love expands with the more you welcome and embrace to your soul. We will be making a book about Mum's life and would love to include your favorite memories of my mum and the special times you shared together. It would mean so much to us if you could add them to the messages and condolences on her memorial page on the MaCoubrey's website, or email me directly so that I can include your memories in her book for our family. Thank you.
Try not to cry, try not to cry. I now invite Carole's brother, Greg Hunt, to share some thoughts about his sister on behalf of his siblings, Gail and Sherry.
(10:33). Oh, sorry, that's the wrong mic. Just like I say, it's a pleasure to be here today. My wife and daughter are sitting out there, and they're shaking in their seats, hoping I don't make any mistakes. I put my brain to pencil to paper a little while ago to write something down. I have it on my iPad. Thank goodness the battery just died. But anyways, if I make any mistakes, sorry about that, but I'll continue on. Anyways, good afternoon to the loving family members and distant relatives. Good afternoon to Carole's long-lasting list of acquired neighbors and everlasting friendships. Some have traveled great distances to attend this celebration of life for Carole Hutson to give their support. As it is said about weddings and funerals, they unite distant families and friends. Weddings and funerals are different on the surface, but both underscore the significance of commitment. A wedding reveals previous promises made, while a funeral recounts promises kept. Carole was born to a family of two sisters, Gail and Sherry. 2 years later, a fourth sibling arrived, a younger brother, who stands before you today. Being the youngest wasn't always easy. Looking back now, I realize it was part of growing up in a family that cared about one another. Our parents would be very pleased with Carole's life outcome, and now she is in heaven with them, looking down upon us. Carole's passing came as a great sadness to all of us. She was reasonably healthy, and none of us expected to lose her so suddenly. It reminds us all that life is very precious and that we should never take our time on this earth for granted. Carole's greatest pride in her life was her family. She loved her two daughters, Kendall and Rochelle, dearly, and very proud of the wonderful mothers they became. Seeing them build happy, loving marriages and loving families brought her intense joy. Saying goodbye to your parents for the very last time is the most difficult undertaking a child can bear, and they've handled it very well. Your father and mother would be very pleased. As we celebrate Carole's life today, I hope we remember not only the sadness of losing her, but also of her laughter, the family gatherings, and her conversations, and the many memories she has given you. Those memories are a gift. That time can never be taken away. Carole, thank you for being my sister. You helped shape my life in ways you probably never realized. You will always have a place in our hearts, and you'll never be forgotten. Rest peacefully, Carole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'd like to invite Nancy Oliver, a Cobourg neighbor, to speak of her friendship with Carole. Well, we can adjust that for you. Here you go. It's not even low enough for some people.
It's a very tall family. And I'm a very short person. So, as has been said, my name is Nancy Oliver, and Kendall and Rochelle have kindly asked me to say a few words about my dear friend and backyard neighbor, Carole. Now, I can't be certain of the time and place that Carole and I first met, but I expect it was probably at a neighborhood get-together. And probably it was at Lynn and Haig Basmagian's, the host with the most. My first impressions of Carole, her hair was perfectly coiffed into a sleek bob. I was to find out later that that bob required effort. And in fact, her hair was very curly. She was classily dressed, lipstick matching her glasses, and all, she was beautifully put together. The next thing I noticed was her warm smile, her sparkling kind eyes, her welcoming demeanor, and charming personality. I think the latter was why Carole and I became friends. Carole was a very loyal friend. We either spoke weekly on the phone or we visited back and forth. Our conversations were always easy. Carole was a great listener, a trait that I believe is in short supply these days. She listened without judgment, offered advice if asked, and best of all, Carole was always interested in other people. Carole had a great sense of humor and was a generous audience to my quips and stories, which is an asset for me. I can't remember what we were talking about the last time I saw her, but I can clearly see her face crinkled up in laughter at something I'd said. I loved her hearty laugh. She always inquired about Stuart's and my well-being, asked about my children and grandchildren, and asked me for my thoughts regarding her life decisions. I really valued these qualities of Carole. I'd had Carole over quite a few times before we landed up in my living room. We almost always sat in my sunroom. On this particular day, I had invited a couple other friends as well. Out of the blue, Carole remarked, "Nancy, you have a lovely room, but it's not very conversationally friendly. You need to move your chairs out from the walls and into the middle of the room." The next thing I know, we're all hauling chairs out from the corners. And because it was Carole, I laughed and complied because I totally trusted her eye for design and decoration. And of course, she was right. Carole, as most of you know, was done with cooking, as are a lot of women who have been doing it for decades. As a result, Carole had her finger on the pulse of the pre-made, frozen food dinner scene in Northumberland County. She was quick with a pen and paper when I was suggesting another possibility, as I'm sure she was with many others. As you have heard, and will continue to hear, what a devoted wife and mother Carole was. Her goal during COVID was to keep Mike safe and alive, and she did so with determination and dedication. On the other hand, she confessed to me that she only ironed the sleeves and fronts of Mike's shirts. He almost always wore some kind of sweater or vest, so she told me the back didn't count. And I was like, "You go, girl." She adored her daughters and their families, and she knew exactly what each of them were doing in each of their lives. I admired the fact that she could tell me in detail what each of her grandchildren was involved with, whether that be sports, school, or their personal lives. Stuart and I have also come to know Kendall and Rochelle and their families over the years and have enjoyed their company as well on many occasions. Whoops. I've been thinking a lot about Carole the last few weeks. I can't seem to quite get my head around her sudden and unexpected departure. Just days before she went into the hospital, we had been discussing her future plans. In some weird and odd way, I'm still waiting for the phone to ring and Carole to give me advice on what color rug I should put under my dining room table. I will miss our talks, our phone conversations when she would say, "It's so good to hear your voice." It is this caring, connecting nature of Carole that I will miss. As we remember Carole today as a loving wife, mother, grandmother, and friend, we must be thankful for the gift she was to us, and she will always be.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you so much for sharing those deep, dark secrets about Carole and her ironing. We were trying to keep that one to ourselves. Keeping the Dark Secrets train going, I now invite Bev Tarshis, a neighbor from Hoggs Hollow, to reflect on her many years of friendship with Carole.
Dear family and friends, when Rochelle asked me to speak today, I felt...
I'll move it over for 3.
Sorry. Is that okay? All right, I'll start again. Dear family and friends, when Rochelle asked me to speak today, I felt very honored. When I sat down to put words on paper, I felt a sensation of profound sadness and loss. Carole was my BFF. For those here of a certain age, it means best friends forever. We communicated with honesty and mutual respect, loyalty, emotional support, and a lot of love. I met Carole 36 years ago when my husband and I bought a house directly across the road from the Hutson family on Knightswood Road in Hoggs Hollow. We both had large dogs, and our walking schedules were the same. And over time, our friendship developed. Carole and Michael were working long hours in retail in those years. My husband and I were traveling and starting to have, in total, 14 grandchildren pretty quickly. We kept in touch as the years passed, a cup of tea, a drink at holiday time, waving as they continued to walk by with their dogs, but I no longer had one. 19 years ago, the call came. We're moving to Cobourg. Well, I knew Michael and Carole were going to retire. They were looking in various places, but they said they found their perfect dream home in Cobourg. We were invited to visit, and as often happens when neighborly friends move away, I've found that you get closer and you start making a point of visiting. We're all a little bit older, so we start coming to Cobourg. She would come to Toronto with Michael, and our husbands, both NFL football fans, bonded. Sunday afternoon or Monday evening at 8, Carole would call, game time, and we could talk and talk and talk. Lunches as a foursome in Whitby, because it was halfway, became a regular event. Lots of laughter, great conversation, and even if we wanted to be alone and just be the two of us, if our husbands knew we were going to meet, we're coming too. The COVID years, many more hours and hours of phone calls. What do you talk about for so long? I know it's Carole on the phone. I can hear you laughing, my husband would say. Books, family, of course, politics. We try to solve the world problems, and of course our children and our grandchildren, who we know more about than they know. When my son and my husband died this past year, I came to Cobourg. Carole's hugs and words of wisdom helped soothe my broken heart. We were two women who grew up in the 1950s. Life was different than it is today, but we felt a lot of gratitude for the decisions and choices that we made. I can hardly see, excuse me. Learning new things, dealing with the challenges of aging, always with optimism and a zest for life. Hopefully with some adventure was what we talked about these past months and weeks before she became ill. We made a lot of plans for the summer to be together. Well, it wasn't to be. May the memories of all the love and laughter and fun-filled times we've all had with my BFF, Carole Hutson, be a blessing in all our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. And finally, we're going to have a representative from Cobourg who's going to be talking about Carole's participation in the book club. Now, this is going to be a bit of an audience participation moment. And I'm getting daggers from probably my wife and her sister because I'm going way off script. But I couldn't help but notice when I got here earlier this morning, as we're setting up, and the slideshow was running, there was genuine confusion on the faces of my children and Zoe and others as they were looking at the pictures of this supposed book club. Now, I understand it's bright and it's sunny, so perhaps that's affecting the light, but you'll see repeated pictures of a book club, not a book to be seen. No unpublished manuscripts, no lithographs, no periodicals, no magazines, not even handwritten notes. So to help solve that mystery, we're going to hear from Brenda Pepper, who can speak to Carole's deep friendships resulting from Carole's book club involvement, which brought her so much joy. Brenda? A book. Close to the microphone, please.
Well, thank you. I did write it in a book, and with a blue ribbon, and with a bit of a pattern, because Carole would like that. Thank you. Rochelle and Kendall and family, I loved that you asked us to wear something bright and colorful. And Carole, I hope that you think this is bright enough. I even made my husband wear something bright and beautiful too. And I see lots of color throughout. And I know Carole would love that. Carole truly was a very special person. And I am honored that you asked me to represent our book club and speak about our dear friend. I first met Carole when Lynn, being a neighbor at the time, asked Carole to a book club meeting. And we were friends instantly. Carole became a dear friend and a member of our book club. Now, this is no ordinary book club. Oh, we do read books, but we do much more. We traveled together. We rode in trucks together. We went to cottages together. We cooked together. We gardened together. We arranged flowers together, which some of you did today for Carole. And most of all, we would eat and laugh together. Our group is a source of love, joy, and light for each other, and Carole's beautiful presence will never be forgotten. During COVID, which was a very difficult time for her, we would meet on a bench at the waterfront, sitting at different ends, wearing our masks and our wraps, because sometimes it was a little cold, drinking coffee and chatting. And our book club still kept reading frantically, continuing to meet, but on Zoom. I wrote out the steps for her and how to do it, and after we had all figured it out ourselves, she would join us on Zoom. And so we continued to have our book clubs on Zoom. And at that time, we did do a book, and once a month we would meet. But being extremely lonely, as we all were, we soon decided that maybe we needed to meet once a week. And so we would meet once a week on Zoom, drinking wine and laughing and talking. What a lonely time COVID was, and to see each other's faces was a gift and a joy. She told me once that those Zoom parties were what got her through some of the most difficult times of her life. She said after the time would end and we would all disappear, she was so sad. And I remembered feeling the same way. But also feeling so happy that we had just met with our dear friends and had a glass of wine and a laugh. And as I think about Carole, our dear friend, I will say one more time, she truly was a very, very special person whom we will never forget.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you for revealing that secret. It was wine. That's what we were looking for in those pictures. On behalf of Kendall, Rochelle, and the entire family, I'd like to express our sincere gratitude to each of you for being here today and joining us online. Your presence is a testament to the loves that Carole touched as a teacher, a leader, a mother, a bubba, and a friend. Though we will miss her deeply, we take comfort in her advice that she gave to her grandsons to take life one step at a time and to find passion in that journey. We will conclude this celebration of Carole's life with a slideshow of some of our favorite moments. There are a lot of photos which will play on loop, try and find the books, throughout the reception. So we encourage you to get up, get some refreshments, chat amongst yourselves, and enjoy the photos and memories of Carole together. It is set to some music that reflects her spirit, a spirit of a true go-getter who loved her family, her community, and the beauty of a life well lived. Thank you, Bubba. Thank you, Carole. We love you.